Hey, the first 3 weeks we talked about what a distracted life is. The second 3 weeks we focus more on what is a focused life. And here's the thing, I don't think anybody that is here today is trying to decide if you want to live a focused life. You're not sitting here going, do I really see the benefits of not living so distracted? Do I really not see I think we all see the benefits of it. But the hard part is the application. The hard part is, what do I actually give up? What do I actually sacrifice? Because in life, we can't do everything. We're limited 24 hours in the day. In college, we thought we could do everything. If you did 4-year university or junior college or even tech school, you get to a place in your 20s, 19, where you're like, I can just add things to my life. What you end up doing is you just sacrifice sleep. you know and you have maybe a kid, and you think, I can add this kid to my life, and still, no, you're going to sacrifice something to be able to keep going, because there's only 24 hours in a day, and money is not unlimited in most people's lives or anybody's life. And so we have to sacrifice something to live a focused life. So I just want to talk about today just kind of like the three options. And I was going to use that. I just think that's kind of high risk. So really what I want to talk about today is just kind of three lives that we can chase. And it's just really simple. And the first life is we can chase survival. The second one is we can chase success. And the third one is we can chase significance. Now, this is church, so there's two things that are always true. The answer is always Jesus, right? There's a story of like a kid. They brought up the kid's Sunday school. He's this cute, like chubby cheeks kid up front. And the pastor says, what has a long bushy tail and stores nuts in the winter? And he says, Pastor, I sounds like a squirrel, but I know the answer is Jesus. Right? Like that's just always true in church, right? There's kind of like on Easter, I know what you're going to talk about. Here, I know you're not going to get to the end, and the answer is in me. It's actually in a connection to Jesus. The other thing that's true is that the last option's always the best one, right? So I'm going to walk through them though. Chasing survival, chasing success, and chasing significance. And the differences between those. And this isn't going to take too long. So you don't really have to worry about getting sunburned today or anything like that. But survival. I don't know if you guys know it, but the show Survivor is on its 44th season, which means it truly has survived. I thought it was kind of funny. Like, I can't think of another show, the CSIs, the Law and Orders. Now, they have done 2 seasons per year, and I didn't know any of this until I called a friend of mine who's also a pastor, who has applied to be on the show 26 times. And he hasn't made it. And he might watch this, I might not, but I called him because I thought, that show, from what I know about it, the whole idea of it is that strangers are put somewhere and their whole bent is survival. Every minute, every action, every word they speak, every thought they have is, how do I preserve my needs and myself? He told me a lot, and he's like, yeah, exactly. And what we talked about was, that's a great reality TV show. It's great television, but it's not good life. Because when we live life in survival mode, we end up sacrificing things that are actually not things, they're actually people. Because I have to make sacrifices for you in order for me to have what I need. Now, of course, there's certain times when we have to think about ourselves, mental health, physical health, our family, that kind of thing. But survival mode on that TV show means that I never really make friends with the people that are on the show. Because all I'm thinking about is what? The money. I'm thinking about the end game. I'm thinking about, if I make this friendship, how is that going to help me win this survivor game? Unfortunately, that's the way a lot of us can live life if we don't think about it. We can live life like that TV show. How is this relationship, how is this right here going to help me get to the next day? Because if I choose serving others, if I choose rest, if I choose something else that might serve someone else or might help me right now in the long game and not just survival today, I might not be here tomorrow. When we chase survival, when we put aside having margin, when we're working hard, we're passionate, and we also have an end goal in mind, but we don't actually have a plan for the long term, we end up just burning out. I think a lot of us have probably seen that. If you've ever watched the TV show, it plays out a lot like unhealthy family reunions, where they all get together and they either talk about the awkward things that happened in the past or they don't, and it's just really quiet. Chasing survival is never going to get us to the place that we need to. We're just going to be living a distracted life, because when we go to sleep, we're thinking about what we're going to do when we're awake. And when we're awake, we're going to be thinking about when's the next time I get to sleep. When we're supposed to be on vacation, we're thinking about work. And when we're at work, we're thinking about the next vacation. Chasing survival just doesn't work. But the next one is chasing success. Chasing success means that I don't necessarily have like an end goal in mind, but I do have a plan. And I do have passion, and I'm going to work hard. This is where most people are. In fact, if you got up this morning and you remembered to bring your lawn chairs, and you maybe even had a plan for like breakfast in the car or makeup in the car and get the baby and everything like that, I mean, you're probably in the like chasing success, which means you're building something. There's something that you're putting together. Each day has like a purpose that's building towards something. It's not just so that I can make it to tomorrow, but so that I can build something bigger than just tomorrow. Chasing success is kind of like when I was a kid. I grew up on the West Coast, and we lived 20 minutes from this thing called a beach, where there was this like a lot of sand, and there's this like kind of small body of water called the Pacific Ocean. And we would go there and yeah, we would skimboard, we would surf, we would boogie board, we would play frisbee a lot. But the thing that we always ended up doing forever is we would build the sandcastle. And like our goal when we would build this sandcastle was we would build it kind of where like the tide was going to come in like the next 20 minutes. Like this was like afternoon, evening, you know what I'm talking about. Okay, you build it there, and so you're digging a hole that is supposed to stop the water, and then you use that sand to build a wall, and then you build your castle. And the goal is when the tide starts coming in, the work begins, and you start making sure that you're building up that wall, that you have a place for the water to go. Becky was a little impressed last time we were there, because this was a year ago. Right, so I was 40 years old, my brother is 38 years old, and like the kids are like, let's build this sandcastle, and we're like, I don't know if we want them to help us. I don't know if they know the strategy that we have, and I think you were ashamed and impressed at the same time with how intense we were to build this sandcastle. And like we have a system for where when the tide comes in, the water's got to go somewhere, that kind of thing, because sand is not really going to stop the tide, guys, seriously. All right, if you're on vacation and you need help or guidance, you can call me for coaching. I'm willing to help out on that. But we would never beat the ocean. The ocean always won, and there was a part of us that knew that, like we would eventually just be able to give in, just sit back and watch our sandcastle get pummeled by the ocean, usually right before we take the ocean's glory, and we would jump on the castle or something like that, or let the kids do that. Really, we did it before them. But that's a little bit what life is like. If we don't have like a greater purpose in why we're building and chasing success, it's kind of like building sandcastles that eventually are going to get stomped by the ocean. Now, that doesn't mean that we shouldn't work hard. That doesn't mean that we shouldn't chase after success. Like what's the opposite of success? Failure? I'm not saying we chase failure. But that maybe, just maybe, if we don't have something bigger and greater and purer, to chase with our lives, why we go to work each day, or if I can trace my life, if there's not a greater purpose for why I went to elementary school so that I could go to junior high, so that I could go to high school, so that I could go to college, so that I could get my first job, so that I could have the stuff to get my second job to be able to do what I'm doing now. Like, if there's not something bigger, then we're going to look back on our lives, and maybe some of us who have, in the second or third quarter of life, can look back now and say, I mean, there were things that I worked so hard on. But yeah, they're like that sandcastle. I go, why was I not building towards something bigger than just something that was going to flatten out anyways? And that's why number 3 is significance. What does it look like to chase significance? Significance is one of those where we have a passion, we're working hard. You can't do it if you don't work hard. If you've got a purpose and you've got a plan, but you don't work hard, I mean, really, that's just causing you to spin in circles. Kind of like when you're on a treadmill and you're working really, really hard, but you're not going anywhere. That's what having a plan and a purpose without hard work is. That really significance has less to do with like what you're doing and more to do with like where your power source is. One of the like very gospel-centric verses in scriptures in John 15, where Jesus is talking to people, and he's been talking a lot about like following him. Like every time that somebody asked Jesus anything about religion, he wouldn't tell them what to believe, he'd tell them what to do. And it would be something around the idea of follow me. It'd be around the idea of leave something to follow me. And there's people that are following Jesus, and then they're asking him a lot about, but Jesus, like you're saying, like we can do great things. We can live lives that have significance. And finally, Jesus uses another illustration. And it's an illustration that being outside really helps. Now, we're not in a part of the world where they have grapevines just like around. And grapevines are really tough to grow. But in first century Palestine, there would be grapevines, vineyards everywhere. Like people would have them outside their home, growing down they're not Adobe style, but that's the closest I think some of us might know, like Adobe style, like square homes growing down. They would have those all around. I don't know if Jesus like had one that right there that he could point, but he starts to say this: I am the vine, meaning Jesus. He says, I, Jesus, am the vine that is growing down, and you, people that are following me, are the branches. He says, anyone who remains in me, I will remain in you, and you will bear much fruit. Now, like we have like a tree here, and that's a trunk with branches, but a vine with branches is more like what he was talking about. But you can kind of see it. Like he might have said if he was here in Nevada, right, looking at those muffins over there for after the sermon, he may have said, like, I'm the trunk, and you're the branches. And he says, if you remain in me, I will remain in you, and you will bear much fruit. Now, he goes on and talks more about, like, there are some branches that are going to be cut off because they don't bear fruit. And that was a very realistic thing, that to take care of your vines, to take care of your grapevines, you had to be meticulous about cutting off the branches that didn't bear fruit, because the resources in that area were very scarce, and you didn't want to waste resources. You wanted them to go to the branches that would produce fruit. It was more about survival, and I'm getting food versus I have a pretty vine outside, that kind of thing. But he used that illustration to say, as you follow me, as you live your life, as you are chasing after the greatest life possible that I created you for, the greatest thing you can do is not just working hard to survive. It's not just having a plan for success, but it's remaining connected to me. Out of all the things he says there, he doesn't list off the 10 Commandments. He doesn't talk about what you need to believe. He says the greatest thing that you can do is see yourself as a branch that needs to remain connected to a vine. And that, to me, is like earth-shaking. Because in so many ways, what I've thought the Christian life is there's stuff that I just need to do. I need to read my Bible this many times, right? Depending on what group you're a part of, it's this many times. I need to sing these songs. I need to use these words. I need to not use these words. But Jesus says the very beginning and the very end of this life, the most important thing you can do is to remain connected and close to me. We don't talk about what a branch needs to do to bear fruit, other than we know that if a branch is separated from that tree, it becomes what? Firewood, right? Which is a purpose in itself, but it's not bearing fruit. And so today, as we finish off our Distracted series, I just want us to be able to, I want us to be able to process this. Process that question of, like, I know a lot of us here are willing to work really hard to achieve goals. I know that. I know a lot of us here are great at putting plans together or looking up on the internet for a plan, right? Like, but I wonder if the third thing, having that source, is something that we're taking seriously today. Whatever that means in your life, Jesus said to prioritize that connection with him above all else. Not that everything else doesn't matter, but I am the kind of person that in my life, every time that I have felt convicted or I've felt like I need to change some things or there's something I want to achieve or get, I work harder. For some of you, when there's something like that, you plan harder. You get the spreadsheet out, or you get the team together, the family together, and you put a new plan together. But what I think we need to do as followers of Jesus is take seriously what he said. That the number one thing we can do when life is difficult and when life is wonderful, when we're in transition or we're in like a plateau, just sweet, smooth road life, to remain in him. That's why we get together, kind of as a reminder, kind of as a time that we say, have I been connected to the vine this week? Could that be a question that we ask ourselves, like a lot? Could that be something we use a dry erase marker and write on our mirror? Am I connected to the vine? And if that's something that you're like, well, what do I do to remain connected to the vine? I think it's the same way that you could look at it in any relationship. You know, I've got relationships that are in survival mode. Maybe you do too, right? Like, we want to get together, and every time that we talk, it's like, oh, hey, yeah, let's get together. But we don't even get our calendars out because we know it's not going to happen. We just know we're so busy. We're adults. We have, whether it's families or practices or whatever. I've got relationships that are in success mode, right? We get together and like there's a plan and we want to get together, but there's not really anything like long-term, like depth going on. Like for a relationship to truly work, like there needs to be something bigger as a part of it. There needs to be a level of dependence, a level of connection. And sometimes relationships are just not in that mode. But with the one who made us, the one who made this beautiful park that we're in, these mountains that are right over there, he's called for us to remain in him. And I think it's something that is symbiotic. Like it's something that both of us benefit. I don't think it was Jesus saying, if you don't remain in me and close to me, I'm going to punish you. I really think he said it in a way to say, this is the best shot you have at life. And the life that I want for you and the life I created you for and the life that you want.